This is Diablo 2 Resurrected. We're on Xbox Series X, taking a look at this interesting upgrade to the classic game. So not only do you get these beautiful modern visuals, you also get the option to, using LT plus the back button, switch on the fly to those original visuals that you might have fallen in love with so many years prior. So this is the beta event, which is multiplayer focused, and it's attempting to provide us with a look into what this experience is really hoping to offer us. So we get a few different options for actually playing the game. It is 8-player co-op enabled. We've got HDR support. But when we go into the options, we get a few different choices. So we get a quality mode and a performance mode. So for me, the performance mode, and you can kind of change them on the fly, which is good. The performance mode is where it's at. So what we're getting here, 4K resolution, I'm assuming dynamic to some degree to give us 60 or 30, because it was supposed to be 4K at 60 was their goal. So I'm assuming the higher quality just pushes the visuals a bit more. So go for visual, or go for the performance, get that 60, much better. And then you get two options. You can do 640 by 480 or 800 by 600 for the game legacy version. So we're going to discard that, make sure we're on performance, there we go. So yeah, just having that fluidity level is just so much better when you're going through this game. It just feels infinitely improved compared to the experience without it. So yeah, I thought those were kind of helpful details. And like I said, it's really cool doing co-op. For the most part, it's actually been running quite well, and I've been having a really good time with it. I think it's quite neat and very interesting. So you pick from a few different class options, and you kind of battle that way. You do the various acts. There's like 2 acts in the beta, because I'm in the closed beta, and then there's an open beta, keeping in mind some things are subject to change. Different elements impact the game in different ways, you know, things like that. I have had some crashes, and I have had some other issues. Now, for me, one thing that I'm really kind of hoping they maybe change is the checkpoint system and or the portal system. So you essentially have these waypoint home portals that you use to get back. If you didn't put one down, or maybe you die really suddenly, you have to do a ton of walking. I'm talking like 10 plus minutes sometimes, depending on how far you're off if you haven't gotten waypoints. And to me, that feels like a very old school, archaic sort of system. And I'm kind of hoping that, you know, they kind of maybe go and improve that a little bit, because it's really annoying. It's just sort of like, I don't know, it's a little bit awkward, and it just kills the flow of the game for me. I was very unhappy having to deal with that. And, yeah, just some other things, but other than that, you know, the music is beautiful, the visuals look fantastic, whether you're actually enjoying that original, you know, sort of experience, or if you're kind of going with the modern look. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Clean sort of system for your UI, the classic design, your character information, your party system. You know, it's very easygoing in regards to understanding stuff, but this one takes a lot of time to get into. I think for the veteran players, you're going to really love what this provides, but for newcomers, you're going to find this very hard to get into. They have not necessarily done the best in regards to touching up some things to make it more accessible for new players. There's a lot of grinding involved in this game. And I think even if you're coming from Diablo 3, which is, you know, where my experience from the franchise is, I hadn't played this one until I checked out this beta. I honestly feel like you're going to have a decently hard time getting into this one, and it's going to take a lot of time to understand some of the smaller meta elements of the game, and I think they could have streamlined some of that a little bit further. Keeping in mind that the full game itself is probably going to have some other elements and options that are going to be different from this. It's just a small, closed beta, and it's, you know, kind of going further in regards to offering neat things. So I should also mention that this doesn't have cross-play, at least this beta doesn't, and it doesn't seem like the full game will either. So keep that in mind if you are looking at this as being something you want to play with friends across platforms. That's just not going to be an option on this one. And I'm not sure if I'm going to come back for the full review of the game, but I might, so stay tuned. There will also be a comparison video on the channel if you want to get a deeper look at the differences between, you know, this old school version of the game and the new one, kind of going toe to toe, side by side. So I think that one actually might be quite interesting if you kind of want to get a deeper look at, you know, the game kind of going and competing with itself, which is kind of neat. But yeah, it's a very typical classic sort of dungeon crawler with some really exhausting points of having to walk to get places. It really, really did drive me crazy, and it's a little bit also hard to keep up with your teammates. I really wish this game had implemented some sort of shared mapping system, because when you play the game, it's a little bit different, the perspective, each time you go and play it. You know, it's going to be a little bit different, the setup. Even when you, like, save and quit and you come back, you're going to go into a different scenario that you're going to have to deal with setup-wise. I mean, it's basically the same thing, but it's a little bit different. And just keep that in mind as you go through it. So you do get decent, like, ability options, and like I said, each class has their own sort of thing going on. So the different classes are going to have different options for, you know, your abilities and your skills. But I think they've done a really marvelous job here of just enhancing those older visuals and really touching things up in some creative ways that I quite enjoyed. Where did these guys actually go? I'm like totally far behind them, which is, you know, a little bit nuts to think about. I don't know if they went deeper or if they went up higher. It's like none of this stuff was really visited here. I'm like all by myself. Which is kind of funny. They might have went back to camp. I'm honestly not too sure, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's that original experience. It's got all of the content that released for it. I think it's actually shaping up to be pretty nice looking and pretty well playing. I mean, the fluidity and stuff feels fantastic here. Gameplay wise, it's really good. I kind of wish it was maybe a little bit less grindy and that maybe they touched up some of the stuff. Because I'm going back to that element of being like, wow, it was hyper frustrating to have to do those long walks, and it's like you couldn't have implemented a little bit easier going of a checkpoint system, guys. Come on. I mean, you know, it's great to have that original experience, but it also doesn't hurt to, you know, touch up some things that haven't necessarily aged as gracefully. And I think these, you know, these types of remakes, remasters are kind of the perfect time to do something like that, at least in my opinion. You can also change where your map is located, which is kind of cool. So you can pop that up in different spots, you can turn it off. It's kind of neat. And you get like a good glimpse into what the game is like. And it's sort of amazing just being here and seeing this difference in the visuals, seeing how this game has changed over time. Because, I mean, I think this is really, at least from what I always hear, one of the definitive dungeon crawling experiences, which kind of makes me really quite wonder why no one mentioned those long walking sequences. And, yeah, it's quite difficult. I definitely would not suggest taking this by yourself. I think it's a lot better of an experience if you are playing with others. I think it could get really frustrating playing by yourself unless you really know what you're doing and you've kind of researched what exactly you're doing here. I'm gonna go ahead and set a portal to go back to the main area here so I can kind of see what everyone's doing. I don't know if they're just chilling out here. Pilum, I don't know if I got 3 to 8. So that's not that great. What does this one do? 6 to 12, that's actually pretty good. I was kind of debating on using that instead of my other one. 3 defense, it's about the same, so we're going to sell that. But this is just that main hub area. I'm assuming if you played this back in the day, this was like, you know, the place you went and chilled out. You did all your stuff here. It's kind of an important little spot, you know. It's kind of a classic little area that you could go and you can chill out and prove all of your stuff. Holy, 1,000 gold. And you can have like a little mercenary that you hire. Mine's getting a little bit pricey, but you can get that mercenary and you can have them come and get you. These are these way shrines, or waypoints, and it can be a little bit hard to actually come across them all the time, if that makes sense. Like, it seems like I skip a lot of them or I don't end up coming to them, which is a little bit tiresome, but we're gonna need a few more of the kind of the back home points just so that we can actually get home faster, well, back to our camps a little bit quicker. But yeah, it's just kind of this really neat, quaint sort of experience that's brought back and, you know, doing some intense stuff. So they are Inner Cloister Catacombs level 3. Okay, I'm gonna go to the Catacombs level 3 to see if I can catch up with these guys, because they're obviously storming through this a lot faster. Actually, I should see what their party level's at. 16 and 10. And I'm 15 Paladin. So they're, you know, similar levels. One of them's a little bit lower. But as you can tell, you know, it very much is that original experience. but they've touched things up. They've improved the visuals, they made it look a lot cleaner and run smoother on the modern platforms, and I think that's an important upgrade for the game. And, you know, it's similar to Halo the Master Chief Collection in regards to how Halo Combat evolved, which was, you know, originally Halo C Anniversary, and Halo 2 was kind of handled in regards to giving you the option to switch back and forth between them so that you could experience that original, game, but at the same time, see the improvements that have been made over time. And I think I should have bought more health potions. And to me, that's really cool that they did that. That they gave you that option to be like, hey, here's where it is, and here's where we've come over the years. And to me, that's quite exciting. You know, just seeing those upgrades, seeing the changes in the games. It's really neat. And so few games actually sit there and give you that choice to go and be like, oh, cool, this is how far we've come. This is the advancements, some of the advancements we've made, and to me that's quite exciting. Still better defense. It's just really neat to still be here, well, to play this game all these years later for the first time and kind of be like, wow, this is, really quite cool looking. It's quite aesthetically pleasing. And at the same time being like, well, I wonder how this game used to look. And you can just easily switch between it. You can be in there seeing how the game used to run and being like, oh, this is kind of neat. You got those visuals that hold up. I'm always a firm believer of when you look at an old game, you look at like Wolfey 3D, you look at Doom, you can see why these games held up so well, because even the original still looks really cool, it looks really good. And then you just throw this nice splash of paint over it, and you're like, wow, this is looking really, really nice. It's quite an amazing sort of feat, just getting that original style and then kind of having it like this. Oh, and there's also cross progression plan support too, but not crossplay, which is so odd. And it's going to be really cool with co-op. I mean, I haven't personally been able to experience large scale co-op. It really seems to cap off in this for some reason. I think we had 3 other people alongside me one time, and that was as far as it went for being like, having large scale co-op in this sort of demo thing. Chipped emeralds. Poison damage is pretty good. Got a lot of these like scroll of identification kind of things. And what I really need is some health potions. But that's what I'm saying, it's like, you get the old, you get the new. And it's been running pretty well. I mean, I'm quite happy with it. The improvements that they have made seem to have been pretty good, but again, I do think they could take things a bit further, because there are some elements that really frustrate me and make it a little bit harder for a newcomer to come into this game and fully, embrace it. Because I think I sat there for about 5 hours straight just working through that first act, and it was it was kind of hardcore, because, there's one time where there was like a crash right when we were about to finish these catacombs, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me, you gotta, start from scratch, and you're just like, what is going on here? and that can be frustrating. So I think maybe a better checkpoint system, like a more upgraded checkpoint system, would be really cool. It's fine to keep the original version too if somebody wants to toggle and choose that, but I would like to have something that's a little bit more upgraded and modern. At least, a bit more accessible, like even looking at, again, Diablo 3, and it just being like, I don't remember having that level of frustration that I did with this one's checkpoints. Some other options that you can do in this game, we kind of looked at the legacy ones quickly, but the game gives you a lot of different, like, audio selections. The music here is fantastic, but you also get a lot of gameplay choices, so you can do, like, user interface things, accessibility options, a lot of controller binding choices. So we can go here to the skill tree, and then we can press X, and we can kind of bind it how we want. That's how I've binded my sprint, it's how I've binded my ability where I've got like a bit of a talk wheel. And it's sort of neat, having this option here, and it's just cool having this combination of exciting gameplay, unique moments, and epic ways to enjoy what this has to offer. I think this is something people are going to play an absolute ton of, just like they did back in the day. But my main worry is necessarily the accessibility, and I think as a new player looking into this, it's very hard to get into what this is. You're gonna have to spend a lot of time. Like I said, I think we streamed for about 5-6 hours or something, and I'm still not entirely sure about all the elements of the game. It seems really, I don't know. It seems terrifying, or I don't know, like just monstrous. It's just a hill to climb to really fully get this one. You know what I mean? It just seems like a lot of effort, a lot of hard work to be able to actually fully understand the scope of this game, and it's just, yeah, that can be frustrating for new players. I think, you know, it can be something that's like intimidating. That's the word I was looking for. It can be an intimidating adventure, but there's also so much you can do and so many different things you can see. It's kind of exciting, and you can replay it a ton, and you can go back and you can do different things over and over and over again, and I think you can have a lot of fun with that. And it's just, you know, you see these humble beginnings where it's like, well, this is the game that so many people fell in love with back in the day, and you never hear the end of it. And you can come here in the modern times and be like, wow, okay, this is why this was so fun, this is why this was so interesting. And you can just kind of enjoy that aspect of it. And to me, I think that's pretty cool. And I'm kind of happy with what this is. Again, kind of debating if I want to do the full game review-wise, because I just think it's going to be so, again, intimidating for me to cover, because there's so much in it. It's such a big game, and it can get frustrating. But, you know, if you play in co-op, I think it's fun. If you have buddies for it, I think you'll have a great time, especially if you get like a full party going. I think it'll just be a splendid time. But if you try to tackle this by yourself, you better be prepared to do some extensive research and work into actually tackling what this has to offer. But that is the Diablo 2 Resurrected on Xbox Series X beta.